Michael Jordan watches security remove a kid for wearing fake Jordans, then buys him the real ones. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan was not supposed to be the great player he became. Growing up in Wilmington, North Carolina, he was like many young boys who dreamed of becoming professional athletes, but few would have predicted the meteoric rise that would lead to him becoming the most iconic figure in basketball history. From a young age, Jordan showed promise on the basketball court, but he was not an immediate standout. He wasn't the tallest or the most gifted athlete at first glance. His early years were marked by a competitive drive and a relentless will to improve. Yet, even then, there was something about his determination that set him apart. Jordan's journey to greatness was filled with obstacles. In high school, he wasn't initially good enough to make the varsity team. As a sophomore, he was cut from the team, an event that would have crushed many players, but for Jordan, it only fueled his fire. He used that rejection as motivation. He would spend hours practicing on the court, honing his skills, pushing himself to become better. His relentless work ethic became a defining trait of his career, and it was something that set him apart from his peers. Jordan's ability to channel setbacks into fuel for his ambition was a major factor in his eventual success. During his high school years, Jordan began to grow both physically and mentally. By the time he was a senior, he had become a dominant player, earning a scholarship to the University of North Carolina. Under the guidance of legendary coach Dean Smith, Jordan's game evolved. His natural talent was refined, and his basketball IQ soared. His freshman year culminated in a game-winning shot in the 1982 NCAA championship, a moment that would come to define his career and foreshadow the big-game mentality he would carry throughout his life. That shot, though significant, was just one step in his climb to the top. Jordan still had a long way to go before he would reach the highest levels of basketball. After 2 years at UNC, Jordan declared for the 1984 NBA draft. The Chicago Bulls selected him third overall, a pivotal moment that would change the course of NBA history. The pressure on Jordan was immediate. He entered a league dominated by superstars like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Isaiah Thomas, and the Bulls, despite their long history, had never been a contender. Chicago was a team in need of a savior, and they pinned their hopes on Jordan. The challenge was immense, but Jordan thrived under pressure. His rookie year was a statement, with him finishing as one of the league's top scorers and winning NBA Rookie of the Year honors. It was clear that Jordan wasn't just another talented player, he was something special. However, despite his individual brilliance, the Bulls struggled to find success. Jordan's early years were filled with growing pains. He was often playing on a team that lacked the depth and cohesion to compete with the best in the league. Yet, even as the losses piled up, Jordan's determination remained unshaken. He understood that winning championships wasn't just about individual talent, it was about building a team, developing chemistry, and learning how to win together. This lesson would become the foundation of his future success. By his third season, Jordan had already proven that he was one of the best players in the world. He was scoring at an astonishing rate, and his ability to perform under pressure was becoming more and more apparent. But the individual accolades didn't satisfy him. Jordan wanted to win championships, and he understood that he couldn't do it alone. The Chicago Bulls were still lacking key pieces, and the road to the top was blocked by powerful teams like the Boston Celtics and the Detroit Pistons. The Celtics, led by Larry Bird, were the reigning champions and had been a force in the NBA for years. The Pistons, with their bruising style of play, were emerging as a dominant team in the East. Jordan and the Bulls found themselves caught in the crossfire of two basketball dynasties. The challenge of overcoming these two teams seemed insurmountable, but for Jordan, it only strengthened his resolve. He wasn't content with being a star, he wanted to be the best, and to do that, he had to learn to beat the best. In 1986, Jordan faced the Celtics in the first round of the playoffs. The series was a showcase of Jordan's incredible talent, but it was also a brutal reminder that individual brilliance could only take a team so far. Jordan scored an astonishing 63 points in a game, but the Bulls were swept by the Celtics. It was a crushing defeat, but it was also a defining moment. Jordan realized that while he was an incredible player, he needed more. He needed teammates who could rise to the occasion. The loss to the Celtics only made him more determined to push his team and himself to new heights. The following season, Jordan and the Bulls took on the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Pistons, with their bad boys mentality, were a tough, physical team that was built to intimidate and wear down opponents. The series was hard-fought, and for the first time in his career, Jordan was pushed to his limits. The Pistons' strategy of physically wearing down Jordan worked, and once again, the Bulls fell short. But this loss was different. Jordan knew that the key to defeating the Pistons wasn't just about scoring more points or being more athletic, it was about outworking them, playing smarter, and bringing his teammates along with him. This loss marked a turning point in Jordan's career. He realized that to win, he had to become a more complete player. He had to be the leader his team needed, not just the scorer they relied on. In the offseason, Jordan made a conscious effort to improve his body. He worked tirelessly to become stronger, faster, and more durable. His physical transformation was the result of sheer willpower, and it was a testament to his work ethic and commitment. Jordan wasn't just focused on becoming a better player, he was focused on becoming the best, and he understood that meant doing things no one else was willing to do. The 1989-1990 season was Jordan's breakout year. He had become a more complete player, and his leadership on the court was evident. The Bulls finished with a 55-27 record, and Jordan led the team into the playoffs with the confidence that they could finally break through. The team's success was built on Jordan's scoring, but also on his improved defense, playmaking, and leadership. The Bulls faced the Pistons once again in the Eastern Conference Finals, but this time, they were ready. Jordan had led his team to a new level, and the Bulls defeated the Pistons in a thrilling series that went to 7 games. The win over the Pistons was a symbolic victory, a moment when Jordan proved to the world that he could overcome the obstacles that had stood in his way. The next challenge was the NBA Finals, where the Bulls faced the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, were the reigning champions and were poised to defend their title. But Jordan and the Bulls had arrived. In the finals, Jordan played at the highest level, leading the Bulls to their first championship. The victory marked the end of Jordan's climb to the top, but it also marked the beginning of a new era in basketball. Jordan had proved that he wasn't just a player to watch, he was the player who defined the game. With his first championship under his belt, Michael Jordan had finally reached the pinnacle of the sport. The hard work, the losses, the sacrifices, all had led to this moment. But for Jordan, the journey wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The legacy he would go on to build from here would change basketball forever. After Michael Jordan's first championship, the expectations surrounding the Chicago Bulls were higher than ever. The 1991-1992 season presented the opportunity for Jordan to prove that his first title wasn't a fluke, but rather the beginning of something special. The team had grown stronger, and Jordan himself had transformed into not only the most dominant player in the league but a leader capable of guiding his team to sustained success. The pressure was on, but Jordan was prepared. His mission was clear. He wasn't satisfied with just one championship. He wanted to build a dynasty, something that would stand the test of time. The 1991-1992 season started with a renewed sense of purpose. Jordan was focused, driven, and committed to being the best. The Bulls were a more complete team than they had been in years past. Scottie Pippen, who had grown into one of the league's best all-around players, was the perfect complement to Jordan's brilliance. The addition of key role players like Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, and Ron Harper gave the team the depth it had lacked in previous seasons. With Phil Jackson's leadership and the implementation of the triangle offense, the Bulls were primed for another championship run. Jordan's individual brilliance was on full display throughout the season. He averaged 30.1 points per game, shooting efficiently and contributing in every aspect of the game. But it wasn't just his scoring that made him stand out, it was his leadership. Jordan had become not only a prolific scorer but also an elite playmaker and defender. He wasn't simply carrying the team offensively, he was the driving force behind everything the Bulls did. His commitment to playing both ends of the floor was a hallmark of his greatness, and it set the tone for the rest of the team. Jordan had evolved into a more complete player, one who could do it all, and he expected nothing less from his teammates. The 1992 Bulls were a well-oiled machine, and the team quickly became the team to beat in the NBA. Despite the growing expectations, the Bulls handled the pressure with grace. They finished the regular season with an impressive 67-15 record, which was the best in the league. The team's success was built on a combination of Jordan's brilliance and the collective effort of the entire roster. Everyone had a role, and everyone played it to perfection. The Bulls were not just a team of stars, they were a team in the truest sense of the word, where each player understood their place and contributed to the greater good. The Bulls cruised through the playoffs, and their first major test came in the Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks. The Knicks, under coach Pat Riley, were a physical, tough-minded team that played aggressive defense and relied on their grit and toughness. They were a challenge for the Bulls, but the series was also a proving ground for Jordan and his teammates. Game 1 was a battle, but Jordan, as always, rose to the occasion, scoring 29 points and leading the Bulls to a crucial road victory. The Knicks fought hard, but they were no match for the well-rounded, cohesive unit that the Bulls had become. The series wasn't easy, and the Knicks made the Bulls work for every victory, but Chicago prevailed in a dominant 4-2 series win. Pippen, who had played a vital role throughout the series, was starting to emerge as a superstar in his own right. Jordan, however, was the unquestioned leader, and his ability to close out games and take control when it mattered most was what set the Bulls apart. His performance in the clutch, especially in Game 6, where he scored 31 points, was the difference maker. The win over the Knicks was a key moment in the Bulls' championship run, as it gave them the confidence to believe they could conquer anyone. Next came the NBA Finals, where the Bulls faced the Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers, led by Clyde Drexler, were a talented and athletic team, but they had never faced a challenge like the Bulls. The Blazers had a balanced offense, but their defense was no match for the relentless style of play the Bulls brought to the floor. Game 1 was a statement game. Jordan, who had already proven his ability to dominate in the finals, was at his best, scoring 35 points and showing his full array of offensive moves. He made 6 three-pointers in the game, an impressive feat for a player known more for his driving ability than his shooting from beyond the arc. The Blazers were stunned, and the Bulls took control of the series early on. The Blazers, however, were not easily discouraged. They fought back in Game 2, with Drexler leading the way, but the Bulls' defense and Jordan's leadership were too much for them to handle. Chicago took Game 2, and the momentum was firmly in their favor. The Bulls' offense was operating at a high level, and the defense, led by Pippen and Jordan, was stifling. The Blazers had no answer for the offensive firepower of the Bulls and could not contain the defensive pressure the team applied. Game 3 in Portland was another step in cementing the Bulls' place as the dominant team in the NBA. Jordan, once again, led the charge with a 29-point performance, and Pippen added 21 points, making it clear that the Bulls were firing on all cylinders. By Game 4, the Bulls were in complete control. Jordan's ability to take over games in crucial moments, combined with the team's depth and cohesion, was too much for the Blazers. In Game 4, with the series on the line, Jordan scored 46 points and led the Bulls to a 97-93 win. The Bulls were now up 3-1 in the series, with a chance to close out the finals in Game 5. The final game of the series was a coronation. The Bulls, led by Jordan's 33 points, secured a 4-2 victory, clinching their second consecutive NBA championship. Jordan was named Finals MVP for the second straight year, solidifying his place as the best player in the world. His performance throughout the finals was a testament to his growth as a player. He had proven that he was not just a scorer, he was a leader who could carry a team to the ultimate prize. The 1991-1992 championship was more than just another title for Jordan, it was the culmination of his transformation into one of the greatest players to ever play the game. His leadership, scoring ability, and all-around game were unmatched, and he had proven that his success was no fluke. The Bulls, led by Jordan, had become a dynasty, and their second consecutive championship solidified their place in NBA history. Jordan's ability to elevate his teammates and lead them to victory was what truly set him apart. With 2 championships in the bag, Jordan knew that the road ahead would be challenging. But the 1991 to 1992 season was a defining moment in his career. It wasn't just about the rings, it was about his growth as a player and as a leader. He had learned that basketball wasn't just about scoring points, it was about making his teammates better, about guiding them through tough moments, and about creating a culture of winning that would endure for years to come. With his second championship under his belt, Jordan was now more focused than ever on creating a legacy that would last long after his playing days were over. The dynasty was just beginning, and the best was yet to come. The 1992 to 1993 NBA season began with Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls at the top of their game. Having won back-to-back championships, they were the team to beat. Jordan had firmly established himself as the best player in the world, and the expectations for a third consecutive title were immense. But even as the Bulls entered the new season with confidence and momentum, there was something different in the air. The challenges of winning 3 titles in a row, the physical toll of repeated deep playoff runs, and the relentless pressure to continue the dynasty weighed heavily on both Jordan and the team. For Jordan, the 1992 to 1993 season was about proving that he wasn't just a player who could win championships when everything was going right. This time, he had to prove that he could maintain that dominance through adversity, both on and off the court. The physical demands of playing at such an elite level, year after year, were taking their toll. Jordan, now 30 years old, was beginning to feel the wear and tear of the game. The pace of the NBA season, with its long stretches of travel and grueling practices, was starting to wear him down. But Jordan was still Michael Jordan. He had the mental toughness to push through the pain and the desire to be the best to keep him going. His competitive fire, always his greatest strength, was still burning brightly. On the court, Jordan was as dominant as ever. He averaged 32.6 points per game, continuing to outshine the competition with his scoring, passing, and defensive play. But his leadership on the floor was perhaps even more impressive than his individual accomplishments. Jordan had not only elevated his own game, he had become the player who made everyone around him better. His relationship with Scottie Pippen had reached its peak. Pippen, who had always been a strong player, had fully embraced his role as the perfect complement to Jordan. The two formed the best duo in the league, with Jordan's ability to score and Pippen's all-around game creating a combination that was nearly impossible to stop. But despite the brilliance of Jordan and Pippen, the Chicago Bulls were facing challenges from within. Scottie Pippen, who was often considered the quiet leader of the team, was growing increasingly frustrated with his contract situation. He had signed a long-term deal that was below market value, and as his performance continued to rise, Pippen found himself underpaid in comparison to his worth. This led to tension, and the Bulls management knew that they needed to address the situation. Pippen's issues off the court began to show on the court. While he continued to play at an elite level, the tension was palpable, and it was something that needed to be resolved if the Bulls were to make another run at the championship. Meanwhile, Jordan was fighting a personal battle that few outside his inner circle knew about. In July 1993, his father, James Jordan Sr., was tragically murdered during a robbery while he was driving through North Carolina. The loss of his father, who had been a constant presence in Jordan's life, hit him harder than anything he had experienced before. James Jordan had been a guiding force in Michael's life, the one person who had always supported him unconditionally, and his death left a void that Michael struggled to fill. Jordan had always been close to his father, and losing him was devastating. The grief was overwhelming, and it affected Jordan in ways he hadn't anticipated. The loss of his father, coupled with the growing tension surrounding the Bulls, left Jordan feeling emotionally drained. Despite his desire to continue playing, there were moments when he questioned whether basketball was enough to fill the void. For a brief period, he considered stepping away from the game to focus on his family and his own healing. The emotional weight was heavy, but his love for the game and the sense of duty he felt to his teammates and his fans kept him going. As the regular season progressed, the Bulls continued to dominate. They finished with a 57-25 record, securing the best record in the Eastern Conference. But the challenges kept coming. The Bulls were once again set to face the New York Knicks in the second round of the playoffs. The Knicks, with their physical style of play and defensive prowess, had become one of the toughest teams in the league. They had given the Bulls trouble in past seasons, and this year was no different. The Knicks, led by Patrick Ewing and coached by Pat Riley, were a formidable opponent, and many believed they had the tools to knock the Bulls out of the playoffs. In the first two games of the series, the Knicks showed their strength, playing tough, physical basketball and forcing the Bulls to fight for every possession. New York took an early 2-0 lead, putting the Bulls in a difficult position. The pressure on Chicago was mounting, and the team knew they had to dig deep to get past the Knicks. In Game 3, the Bulls responded, with Jordan leading the way. He scored 54 points, willing the team to a much-needed win and showing that he was still capable of taking over in the clutch. The win in Game 3 was a pivotal moment in the series, but the Knicks weren't backing down. The next few games were a back-and-forth affair, with both teams playing at a high level. In Game 5, with the series tied 2-2, Jordan put on a performance for the ages. He scored 29 points, grabbed 10 rebounds, and dished out 5 assists, guiding the Bulls to a crucial victory. His ability to dominate the game in multiple ways was a testament to his evolution as a player. By now, Jordan was more than just a scorer, he was a complete player who could impact the game in any situation. His leadership on both ends of the floor proved that he was still the player who could take over a series when it mattered most. The Bulls won Game 6 to close out the series 4-2, but it was clear that the Knicks had given them everything they could handle. The emotional and physical toll of the series was evident, but the Bulls had once again proven that they were a championship-caliber team. Jordan's ability to step up in big moments was the difference-maker, and his performance in the series further solidified his place as the best player in the league. With the Knicks out of the way, the Bulls advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they would face the defending champion Chicago Bulls. The series was highly anticipated, and many saw it as the true test of the Bulls' championship aspirations. It would take everything they had, and once again, Jordan led the charge, dominating the competition and leading his team to the finals. In the finals, the Bulls squared off against the Phoenix Suns, led by Charles Barkley, in a showdown that would go down in NBA history. The series would test Jordan's ability to rise above the challenge, and ultimately, he proved why he was the greatest player of his generation. The Bulls won the series in 6 games, capturing their third consecutive title and cementing their place in NBA history. Jordan's 41 points in Game 6 were the final dagger in Phoenix's hopes, and his leadership throughout the series was the defining factor. The 1992-1993 season ended with Jordan's third consecutive championship and his third Finals MVP award. However, the season was marked by more than just the titles. It was a season of personal growth and emotional resilience for Jordan. He had fought through loss, physical exhaustion, and internal tension to achieve greatness once again. As Jordan stood on the court, holding his third trophy, he knew that this championship was unlike the others. It had come through adversity, and it meant more than the ones that came before it. But even with 3 championships, Jordan was beginning to feel the weight of the game. The toll of carrying the team, coupled with the personal challenges he had faced, was beginning to take its toll. The decision to retire, although unspoken, was becoming inevitable. The 1993 championship wasn't just a culmination of his career, it was the beginning of a new chapter. Michael Jordan's legacy had been sealed, but what came next would change everything. The story of his time in basketball, his triumphs, and his struggles, was far from over. The summer of 1993 saw Michael Jordan at the peak of his career. Having won 3 consecutive NBA championships, established himself as the face of the league, and become a global icon, Jordan's place in history seemed solidified. But despite the acclaim and recognition, there was an unmistakable sense that something was missing. Jordan had always been fueled by a desire to push boundaries and conquer new challenges, but as he sat in the quiet aftermath of yet another championship win, there was a deeper emptiness. A feeling that perhaps the game of basketball alone wasn't enough to fill the void he felt after losing his father, James Jordan Sr., the year before. The sudden death of his father, during the summer of 1993, was a blow that no amount of success could ease. James Jordan had been not just a father to Michael, but his rock and his most devoted supporter. His death sent shockwaves through Jordan's life. The grief was all-consuming. It wasn't just the loss of a parent, it was the loss of a part of himself. His father had been there through every triumph and setback, always offering advice, wisdom, and unwavering encouragement. Now, with his father gone, Jordan's sense of purpose and his deep connection to basketball began to unravel. Jordan's relationship with the game of basketball had always been based on a profound connection to his father's values. James Jordan taught Michael the importance of hard work, dedication, and humility, and his presence was a constant source of inspiration. The pain of his father's passing went beyond the emotional toll. It affected Jordan's motivation to keep pushing through the grueling demands of professional basketball. In the months following the tragedy, Jordan's focus on basketball began to wane. The drive that had once burned so brightly felt dimmer. Even the possibility of winning more championships seemed secondary to the emotional void he felt. In the summer of 1993, after completing the three-peat with the Chicago Bulls, Jordan made an unexpected decision. He announced his retirement from the NBA. The world was stunned. At the age of 30, in the midst of his prime, Jordan decided to walk away from the game that had defined him. His departure left a hole not just in the NBA but in the global sports landscape. Michael Jordan wasn't just a basketball player, he was a symbol of excellence, and his decision to leave the game sparked widespread disbelief. His reasons for retiring were clear to those closest to him, but to the public, it was a mystery. Jordan's retirement, however, wasn't a permanent departure from the world of sports. Shortly after leaving the NBA, he turned to baseball, a sport his father had loved. James Jordan had always dreamed of Michael playing baseball, and the decision to pursue this sport felt like a way for Jordan to honor his father's memory. In March of 1994, Jordan signed a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox and began playing for their Double-A affiliate, the Birmingham Barons. Jordan's foray into baseball was met with skepticism. Critics questioned his decision to leave basketball at the height of his powers for a sport he had not played seriously since his youth. But for Jordan, baseball was an opportunity for reinvention. He wanted to step away from the spotlight, to take a break from the expectations and pressures of being the greatest basketball player in the world. But, as he would soon learn, even in baseball, the competitive fire inside him burned just as fiercely. At first, Jordan's time with the Barons was challenging. His performance was underwhelming by professional baseball standards. He struggled at the plate, facing a steep learning curve in the highly competitive world of minor league baseball. His batting average was low, and he struck out frequently. Yet, despite these struggles, Jordan's attitude remained unchanged. He was determined to succeed. The same work ethic that had driven him to become a basketball legend now translated into his approach to baseball. He worked tirelessly, often staying on the field after games to improve his swing, his fielding, and his understanding of the game. Jordan was relentless in his pursuit of excellence, and this perseverance earned him respect from his teammates and coaches. Though he struggled at times, Jordan's presence with the Birmingham Barons had an undeniable impact. His fame brought attention to the minor leagues, and fans flocked to see him play. Jordan's competitive spirit also elevated the performance of his teammates. Even in a sport where he was still learning the ropes, his drive to be the best rubbed off on everyone around him. Jordan's brief time in baseball was about more than just his personal performance. It was about proving to himself that he could succeed in something new, something outside of basketball. Yet, despite his passion for baseball, Jordan couldn't fully shake the pull of basketball. The competitive void he had been trying to fill with baseball remained. The idea of a second career, playing for his father, hadn't quite lived up to his expectations. His love for basketball, the sport that had made him a global legend, was still strong. He realized that no matter how much he tried to distance himself, basketball was his calling. In March 1995, Jordan made the decision to return to the NBA. In a simple press release, he announced, "I'm back." The timing seemed right. The Bulls had struggled in his absence, and the team was no longer the same dominant force it had been in the past. Jordan's return wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a rallying point for the Bulls, who were eager to reclaim their spot at the top of the NBA. Jordan's return to the NBA was nothing short of a spectacle. The world watched as the greatest player of all time made his way back to the court, and the expectations were immediately sky high. Would he be the same player? Could he still dominate the league after a year and a half away from the game? The questions were countless, and the pressure was enormous. But Jordan was ready. He had always thrived under pressure, and his return was just another challenge he was determined to conquer. Jordan wasted no time making his presence felt. He played his first game back on March 19, 1995, against the Indiana Pacers. Despite a somewhat sluggish performance, scoring 19 points on 7 of 28 shooting, it was clear that Jordan's hunger for success hadn't diminished. His next few games showcased the same competitive intensity and skill that had made him a legend. By the end of the season, Jordan was back to his old self. The same swagger, the same confidence, the same ability to take over games, it was all there. In the 1995 to 1996 season, Jordan and the Bulls returned to championship form. The team added key players like Ron Harper, Steve Kerr, and Tony Kukoc, and under the guidance of coach Phil Jackson, the Bulls were ready for another run at the title. Jordan's return sparked a new level of intensity for the Bulls, and the team once again dominated the NBA, finishing the regular season with a 72-10 record, the best in NBA history. Jordan, for his part, was in peak form. He led the league in scoring, won his 4th MVP award, and took the Bulls back to the top. The 1996 championship run proved that Jordan's return was the spark the Bulls needed. His leadership, coupled with the talent around him, was a recipe for success. The Bulls defeated the Seattle Supersonics in the NBA Finals, and Jordan captured his 4th Finals MVP award. The dynasty was back, and Jordan had once again proven that his greatness was not just a part of the past, it was alive and well. Jordan's return to basketball was more than just a comeback, it was a reaffirmation of his place as the best player to ever play the game. His ability to rise above the challenges, both personal and professional, made his second chapter even more remarkable than the first. Michael Jordan had not only returned to basketball, he had reminded the world why he was the greatest to ever do it. The 1996 to 1997 season marked a pivotal chapter in Michael Jordan's storied career. With the Chicago Bulls coming off a dominant 72-10 season and a 4th NBA championship, the pressure was on Jordan to maintain his level of excellence. Yet, even with the weight of expectation, Jordan seemed to rise to every occasion. His hunger for victory, his drive to surpass his previous successes, and his determination to build an even greater legacy were palpable. It wasn't just about adding another title, it was about cementing his place as the greatest player the game had ever seen. As the season began, the Bulls were once again the team to beat. They were a well-oiled machine with Jordan at the center. Scottie Pippen, already a proven star, was playing at an even higher level, bringing his all-around game to new heights. The addition of key players like Ron Harper, Steve Kerr, and Tony Kukoc provided the Bulls with a versatile and deep roster that complemented Jordan's brilliance. The team had chemistry, depth, and leadership, and it was clear they were not only capable of winning another title, they were poised to dominate the league once more. Jordan entered the 1996 to 1997 season with a renewed sense of purpose. While he had already established himself as the greatest player of his era, the hunger for more was never extinguished. He was driven by the challenge of winning multiple championships, not just one or two. He knew that true greatness was measured not by individual accolades but by sustained success over time. Jordan was never satisfied with just being the best in the league, he wanted to be remembered as the greatest of all time. Throughout the season, Jordan's performance was a masterclass in basketball excellence. He averaged 29.6 points per game, maintaining his spot at the top of the league in scoring while also contributing in other areas. He continued to play elite defense, snatching steals and locking down opposing players. But what really set him apart was his leadership. Jordan's presence on the court, his ability to take control of a game when it mattered most, and his unwavering confidence in himself and his teammates made the Bulls the most feared team in the NBA. His leadership extended beyond just the basketball court. He had created a culture of winning, where every player understood their role and played to the best of their ability. Despite the team's success, there were challenges along the way. Injuries began to take a toll on the Bulls, particularly Pippen, who was struggling with a bad back. There was also growing tension around the possibility of coach Phil Jackson's departure after the season. Jackson had been the architect of the Bulls dynasty, but there were rumors that he might leave after the 1997 to 1998 season, making this championship run even more significant. In the face of these challenges, Jordan's leadership was crucial. He remained focused on the ultimate goal, winning the championship. The Bulls breezed through the regular season, finishing with a 69-13 record. The team was firing on all cylinders, but Jordan knew that the real test would come in the playoffs. With the stakes higher than ever, the competition was fierce. Yet, even with all the pressure, Jordan continued to shine. His performance in the postseason was nothing short of extraordinary. He played with the same intensity and determination that had defined his entire career, and his ability to step up in clutch moments made him nearly unstoppable. The Bulls' first challenge in the playoffs came in the Eastern Conference semifinals, where they faced the Atlanta Hawks. While the Hawks were a talented team, they were no match for the Bulls' intensity. Jordan and the Bulls swept the Hawks in 3 games, dispatching them easily. It was clear that Chicago was on a mission, and Jordan was leading the charge. Next up were the Miami Heat, led by Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway. The Heat had been one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference that year, and they posed a serious threat to the Bulls' championship hopes. The series was harder than expected, but the Bulls showed their true mettle. Jordan averaged 30.4 points per game in the series, and his leadership was once again the difference. The Heat pushed the Bulls to 5 games, but Chicago advanced, securing a 4-1 victory. The Bulls' biggest challenge was still to come, the Eastern Conference Finals against the longtime nemesis, the New York Knicks. The Knicks, under coach Pat Riley, had become one of the most physically tough teams in the league, and their defense was their calling card. They played a gritty, hard-nosed style that frustrated opponents. The series was an intense battle, with both teams going back and forth. In Game 1, the Knicks took a 1-0 series lead with a hard-fought victory, but Jordan and the Bulls responded with a vengeance in Game 2. Jordan, as always, was the focal point, and his 41-point performance in Game 2 was a testament to his ability to take control of a game when it mattered most. As the series progressed, the Knicks continued to fight, but Jordan's leadership never wavered. He wasn't just scoring, he was facilitating, creating plays, and setting up his teammates. His performance in Game 5, where he scored 36 points and grabbed 8 rebounds, helped the Bulls clinch a hard-fought 4-2 series win. With that, they were headed back to the NBA Finals for the 3rd straight year. The challenge ahead was clear. They would face the Utah Jazz, led by Karl Malone and John Stockton, in a battle for the championship. The 1997 NBA Finals were set to be a classic matchup. The Utah Jazz had been one of the top teams in the West, and their combination of offensive firepower and defense made them a serious threat to the Bulls. The Jazz, particularly Malone and Stockton, had been close to a championship for years, but they had never been able to break through. Now, they stood in the way of Jordan and the Bulls' bid for a 3rd straight title. The series opened in Chicago, where the Bulls quickly took control. Jordan, still playing at an elite level, dropped 31 points in Game 1, and the Bulls won comfortably. However, the Jazz were no slouches, and they bounced back in Game 2 with a strong performance, tying the series at 1-1. The series then shifted to Salt Lake City for Games 3 and 4, where the Jazz capitalized on their home court advantage. In Game 4, the Jazz secured a 78-73 win, taking a 2-1 series lead. But Jordan, as he had so many times before, responded with a performance for the ages. Despite dealing with a case of the flu, he led the Bulls to a crucial Game 5 victory with 38 points, one of the most iconic performances in finals history. The game became known as the Flu Game, and it cemented Jordan's place as the ultimate competitor. With the series tied 2-2, the Bulls and Jazz returned to Chicago for Game 6. Jordan, still visibly weak from the flu, played through the pain and delivered when it mattered most. He scored 22 points in the second half, and his defense, along with key plays from his teammates, helped the Bulls take control of the game. With less than a minute left, Jordan hit a clutch shot over Bryon Russell to give the Bulls a crucial lead. The Bulls went on to win the game 90-88, capturing their fifth championship in 7 years. The victory marked another milestone in Jordan's already legendary career. He had led the Bulls to 3 consecutive titles, and his performance in the 1997 finals proved that he was still the best player in the game. The 1997 championship also solidified his legacy as a player who could perform under any circumstance, no matter the pressure, no matter the challenge. Jordan's leadership, resilience, and ability to take over games when it mattered most had once again propelled the Bulls to the pinnacle of the NBA. The dynasty was alive and well, and Michael Jordan's place in history was firmly cemented. As the confetti fell and Jordan stood on the court with his 5th championship ring, the world knew that this was only the beginning. The best was still yet to come. The 1997-1998 season began with the unmistakable buzz of anticipation. The Chicago Bulls were poised to make a final push for a 6th championship with Michael Jordan at the helm. This season was different, though. It wasn't just another year of basketball, this was the final chapter for the most dominant basketball dynasty in history. The team, despite its remarkable success, was already beginning to feel the strain of an extended run. Coach Phil Jackson, having led the Bulls to 5 titles, made it clear that this would be his final season with the team. The same could be said for Jordan. Though he was still playing at an elite level, there was a growing sense that this was the end of the road. The team faced internal turmoil. Scottie Pippen, a central figure in the Bulls' success, was once again dealing with contract issues. Pippen, who had been underpaid for most of his career, was disgruntled with his situation and the lack of respect he felt from management. His frustration, combined with Jackson's impending departure, created an air of uncertainty around the team. Yet, despite these challenges, Jordan remained the anchor for the Bulls, leading the team both on and off the court. His focus never wavered, and his determination to win his 6th championship was unwavering. The regular season unfolded with the usual dominance from the Bulls. Jordan, now 35, was playing as if he had something to prove. He averaged 28.7 points per game, continuing to play at an MVP level. But there was a noticeable shift in the way Jordan played. He wasn't just carrying the scoring load, he had become a more complete player. His leadership on the court was unmatched. Jordan's ability to read the game, make his teammates better, and dictate the flow of a contest was as sharp as ever. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to finish his career with a flourish, to prove that even in his later years, he was still the best player in the game. As the regular season progressed, the Bulls found themselves in a battle with the Indiana Pacers for the top spot in the East. The Pacers, led by Reggie Miller and a deep supporting cast, had improved significantly over the past few seasons and were primed to challenge the Bulls for supremacy in the East. But despite the competition, the Bulls once again finished with the best record in the NBA at 62-20. They were the team to beat. Even with the internal drama, even with Pippen's frustration and Jackson's exit looming, the Bulls were still the most dangerous team in the league. Jordan had willed them to the top once again. But the playoffs were where the stakes really mattered. As dominant as the Bulls had been during the regular season, the postseason was an entirely different beast. And for Jordan, this wasn't just about proving that the Bulls could win another championship, it was about leaving a legacy. It was his final shot at immortality, his last opportunity to solidify his place as the greatest player to ever play the game. He knew the pressure was immense, but it was a pressure he had embraced countless times before. In the first round of the playoffs, the Bulls faced the New Jersey Nets. The series was expected to be a quick one, and the Bulls delivered, sweeping the Nets in 3 games. Jordan's play was as flawless as ever, but even with the quick victory, there was a sense that the real challenges were still to come. The Chicago Bulls, for all their dominance, were not the only team with championship aspirations. The Eastern Conference was filled with tough teams, and in the second round, the Bulls would face a team that had already given them fits in the past, the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers, led by Reggie Miller, were not afraid of the Bulls. In fact, they had made it clear they weren't intimidated by Chicago's championship pedigree. Miller, with his clutch shooting, and the Pacers' defense, which had been steadily improving over the years, presented a real challenge to the Bulls. The series was hard-fought, and the Pacers pushed the Bulls to their limits. But once again, it was Jordan who rose to the occasion. His leadership on both ends of the floor proved to be the difference. He averaged 29 points per game in the series, but it was his ability to make his teammates better that stood out. He trusted Pippen, Tony Kukoc, and others to step up when it mattered, and they did. The Bulls won the series 4-3, but it was clear the competition was getting tougher. With the Pacers out of the way, the Bulls advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals to face the rival Detroit Pistons. The Pistons, who had once been the roadblock to Jordan's championships in the late 80s, were not the same team they had once been, but they still had their tough-minded, defensive approach. The rivalry between the two teams had defined much of the late 80s and early 90s, and even with the Pistons in decline, there was still a certain level of animosity. This series was more about the emotional legacy of their past battles. Jordan and Pippen had fought tooth and nail to get to this point, and now they were on the brink of another finals appearance. The Bulls dispatched the Pistons in a convincing 4-0 sweep, ending any doubts that they were still the dominant force in the East. Jordan's performance was nothing short of spectacular. His ability to take over games was evident in the decisive Game 4, where he dropped 35 points, leading the Bulls to a resounding victory. It was clear that the Bulls, even with the drama surrounding them, were in championship form. They had done the hard work to get to this point, and now only one obstacle remained between them and another title, the Utah Jazz. The 1998 NBA Finals were set, and for the Bulls, it was a final opportunity to close the book on an incredible chapter in basketball history. The Utah Jazz, led by Hall of Famers Karl Malone and John Stockton, were a dangerous team. They had been one of the best teams in the West for years, and the combination of Malone's dominant scoring and Stockton's elite playmaking made them a serious threat to the Bulls' dynasty. The series would test everything Jordan and the Bulls had left. In Game 1, the Bulls took control, with Jordan leading the charge. His performance was electric, scoring 31 points and showing the world that despite his age, he was still the best player in the world. But the Jazz were tough, and they fought back in Game 2, tying the series 1-1. The stage was set for the most important final series of Jordan's career, one last run at a sixth title, one final opportunity to prove his greatness. The Bulls and Jazz traded wins, but it was clear that Jordan was playing with something more than just physical ability. He was playing with purpose. In Game 5, he displayed a remarkable level of resilience. Despite being visibly exhausted from the intensity of the series and battling through an illness, Jordan stepped up in the clutch. His 38-point performance in Game 5 was a testament to his unparalleled ability to perform when the stakes were highest. The Bulls took a 3-2 series lead, but the Jazz were not done yet. Game 6 of the finals would be the defining moment of Jordan's career. With the series tied 3-3, the game came down to the final moments. The tension in the arena was palpable as Jordan, fatigued and sick, delivered the shot heard around the world. With just under 30 seconds left, Jordan drained a jumper over Brian Russell, giving the Bulls a 1-point lead. It was the defining moment of a remarkable career. The Bulls went on to win the game, capturing their sixth NBA championship. Jordan had done it again. He had won his sixth title, and with it, he cemented his place in basketball immortality. Jordan's performance in Game 6 was a fitting end to a career that had defined greatness. His leadership, his ability to rise to the occasion, and his relentless pursuit of victory had once again propelled the Bulls to the top. As the confetti fell and the celebration began, it was clear that Michael Jordan's legacy would live on forever, not just as the greatest player of his time, but as the player who defined what it meant to be great. The 1998 NBA Finals, with the Chicago Bulls on the brink of a sixth championship, also marked the final act of a dynasty that had ruled the league for nearly a decade. Michael Jordan, at the age of 35, had led the Bulls through multiple championship runs, but this time felt different. The pressure was enormous, as not only was this his last chance at another title with the Bulls, but it was the end of an era. His teammate, Scottie Pippen, was also dealing with ongoing issues related to his contract and health, while coach Phil Jackson had already made it clear this would be his final season with the team. There was an unmistakable sense that this was the closing chapter for a team that had redefined basketball. Despite the looming uncertainty, Jordan remained focused, as he always had. His leadership, even under the most difficult circumstances, set the tone for the entire team. In the first few games of the finals, it became evident that the Utah Jazz, led by Karl Malone and John Stockton, were not going to simply hand the title to the Bulls. The Jazz were a well-coached, disciplined team, and their ability to execute on both ends of the floor made them a formidable opponent. The matchup between the two teams was more than just a battle for the championship, it was a clash of contrasting styles and personalities. Game 1 of the finals saw the Bulls and Jazz go head-to-head in Chicago. Jordan was in top form, leading the Bulls with 31 points in a solid victory. But it wasn't just Jordan's scoring that made the difference, it was his leadership. He knew that if the Bulls were going to win their 6th championship, every player on the team needed to contribute. And while the Bulls were victorious in Game 1, Jordan was well aware that the Jazz weren't going to roll over easily. The true test, he knew, would be in the games to come. In Game 2, the Bulls faced their first major challenge. The Jazz, playing in front of their home crowd, delivered a much-needed response. Utah's defense was stifling, and Malone, with his combination of size and skill, proved to be a problem for the Bulls. The Jazz won Game 2 to even the series, and as the series shifted back to Chicago for Games 3 and 4, the pressure began to mount on the Bulls. Could they maintain their dominance? Could they deal with the emotional weight of knowing that this could be the last time they played together as a team? Game 3 saw a rejuvenated Bulls squad. Jordan was at his best, putting up 24 points, and Scottie Pippen, despite his back problems, played one of his most significant games of the series, contributing 17 points and 7 rebounds. The defense from the Bulls, particularly from Pippen and Ron Harper, was instrumental in limiting the Jazz's offensive output. With a 96-54 blowout victory in Game 3, the Bulls regained control of the series. The win reaffirmed their dominance, but the real test was still ahead. The turning point came in Game 5. The series was tied 2-2, and with the finals hanging in the balance, Jordan delivered one of the most memorable performances of his career. The Jazz came out strong, and at one point, the Bulls were trailing by as many as 16 points. But as he had done so many times before, Jordan refused to back down. His play in the second half, where he scored 38 points and led the Bulls to a 90-88 victory, showed the world just why he was considered the best to ever play the game. His ability to perform in crunch time was unmatched, and as he hit clutch shots, the atmosphere in the United Center was electric. The Bulls took a 3-2 series lead, and once again, it seemed that Jordan had the ability to bring the team across the finish line. In Game 6, with the championship on the line, Jordan's leadership and skill were once again on display. He had been battling flu-like symptoms for days, and his physical condition was far from ideal. Yet, he refused to let his illness keep him from performing at the highest level. The game became known as the flu game, and Jordan's determination to overcome the physical toll of his condition and still deliver a masterful performance became the defining moment of the series. He scored 38 points, grabbed 7 rebounds, and made several key defensive plays that helped seal the victory for the Bulls. The game had become a symbol of Jordan's resolve, his ability to rise above any challenge and perform under the most intense pressure. As the final buzzer sounded and the Bulls secured the win, clinching their 6th title, Jordan's emotions were a mixture of triumph and relief. The weight of the moment was not lost on him. This championship, coming at the end of his career with the Bulls, was the perfect way to close out his time with the team. Jordan had reached the pinnacle once more, and the title meant even more because of the adversity he had faced, not just in the series, but in his personal life, the struggles with his team, and the pressure of being Michael Jordan. As he held his 6th Finals MVP trophy in his hands, Jordan reflected on what this victory meant. It wasn't just another championship, it was the culmination of everything he had worked for, everything he had sacrificed. 6 titles. 6 Finals MVPs, countless accolades. The journey had been long, filled with countless hours of practice, intense competition, and personal sacrifice. But it was all worth it. For the team, the victory was bittersweet. Jordan's decision to retire from basketball after this championship meant the end of an era. The Bulls were no longer the same team without him, and while they would continue to be competitive in the years to come, they would never quite reach the same heights as they did during Jordan's reign. As Jordan's teammates celebrated, there was a sense that something deeply important had come to an end, not just the 1998 season, but a dynasty that had forever changed the game of basketball. The post-championship celebrations were marked by both joy and melancholy. Jordan, ever the leader, shared the victory with his teammates, acknowledging their contributions to the title run. He spoke to the media about his decision to retire, explaining that this was the right time. Despite the team's success, there was a realization that Jordan could no longer give everything to the game. His body, though still capable of incredible performances, had taken a toll. His passion for the game was still there, but it was time to step away. For the fans, the realization that this might be the last time they saw Michael Jordan in a Chicago Bulls uniform was a difficult one. His impact on the sport, on the city, and on the world of basketball had been immeasurable. He was more than just a player, he was a global icon, a figure whose legacy transcended the sport. As Jordan walked off the court for the final time, there was a sense of closure, but also a recognition that the world of basketball would never be the same. Jordan's legacy as the greatest basketball player of all time was secure. He had defined an era of basketball, and his influence reached far beyond the court. His championships, his clutch performances, and his unmatched work ethic had set the standard for what it meant to be great. His influence extended not only to future players but also to how the game was marketed, how athletes approached their own personal branding, and how fans engaged with the sport. Jordan was more than just a player, he was the standard, the example, and the benchmark for all future stars. As Jordan moved into retirement, he knew that his journey wasn't over. The competitive fire that had burned inside him throughout his career would continue to drive him in new ventures. Yet, the victory in 1998, the culmination of everything he had achieved, remained the high point. Jordan had not just conquered the NBA, he had changed the game. And with his final championship, he ensured that his place in history would be remembered for generations to come. The 1998 NBA Finals, a series that would mark the conclusion of the Chicago Bulls dynasty, was not just about basketball, it was about Michael Jordan's legacy. For Jordan, this final series encapsulated everything he had worked for, both on and off the court. The tension in the air was palpable, not only because the Bulls were aiming for their 6th championship in 8 years, but because this was a moment that felt like the end of an era. Jordan's career had come full circle, and as the final buzzer of Game 6 sounded, the realization hit, he had done it one last time. Throughout the series, Jordan had been nothing short of spectacular. Despite being 35 years old, with a body that had been through the wear and tear of a decade-long reign as the best player in the world, Jordan showed no signs of slowing down. His commitment to winning, to pushing through every obstacle, had never wavered. In Game 6, when the stakes were at their highest, Jordan played through sickness, fatigue, and the pressure of knowing this might be his last game with the Bulls. But when the final moments arrived, he showed the world what made him not just a great player but the greatest player ever. With less than a minute remaining in the game, the Bulls clung to a slender 1-point lead. Jordan, visibly exhausted, walked to the free throw line. He had already been battling the flu and fatigue, but as he stood there, he showed no sign of hesitation. He sank both free throws, putting the Bulls up by 3 points. In the next possession, he stole the ball from Jazz guard John Stockton, breaking the Jazz's heart and effectively sealing the victory. The Chicago Bulls were champions once again. The final score, 90-88, secured their 6th title, and Michael Jordan had led them to victory in his last finals appearance. Jordan's 6th title not only reinforced his position as the NBA's greatest but also served as a testament to his indomitable spirit. He had faced personal and physical challenges throughout the season, including the emotional toll of his father's death years earlier and the pressure of knowing that this would be the last championship run with the Bulls. Yet, even with the weight of the world on his shoulders, he had delivered. He had carried the Bulls through a tough season and into the finals, leading them to yet another victory. There was no doubt now, Michael Jordan was more than just a basketball player, he was the standard by which all others would be judged. As the confetti fell on the court, Jordan looked around at his teammates, Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, and others, who had supported him throughout the season and helped him win his sixth title. They had been instrumental in the victory, but it was Jordan who had once again carried the team on his shoulders when it mattered most. It was clear to everyone in the building that this moment, this championship, was as much about his leadership as it was about his skill on the court. Jordan wasn't just a star player, he was the heart and soul of the Bulls. But with the victory came the inevitable. As much as Jordan loved the game, the decision to retire was final. He had achieved everything he had set out to do. He had proven that he was the best player in the world, not just once, but 6 times. He had carried the Bulls to the top of the NBA, leading them to victory in the most difficult of circumstances. He had already accomplished more than any player could dream of, and it was time to walk away from the game that had made him a legend. In the weeks following the victory, Jordan made it clear that this would be his final time wearing a Bulls uniform. For Jordan, the decision to retire wasn't easy, but it was necessary. He had nothing more to prove. The physical toll of the game, the years of intense pressure, and the emotional strain of maintaining such a high level of performance had caught up with him. His body had taken a beating over the years, and as much as he loved the game, he knew that it was time to step away. But there was also a sense of peace that came with the decision. Jordan was at peace with his legacy. He had given everything to basketball, and now it was time for a new chapter in his life. As he walked away from the court for the last time, Jordan knew that his legacy would live on. He had reshaped the game of basketball, changing not only the way the sport was played but also how it was viewed by millions of fans around the world. His influence extended beyond the basketball court. He had become a global icon, a symbol of excellence, hard work, and determination. He had changed the landscape of sports marketing and popular culture, making him a household name in every corner of the globe. His impact on the NBA and the world of sports would be felt for generations. Even though Jordan's career was over, his influence on the game didn't stop. He became an owner of the Charlotte Hornets, continuing his involvement with the NBA from a different perspective. His impact on the game as a businessman, mentor, and role model was just as profound as his legacy as a player. The lessons he taught through his work ethic, his pursuit of greatness, and his leadership continue to resonate with players, coaches, and fans. In the years following his retirement, Jordan's impact on the NBA only grew. The players who followed him, including Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and others, openly acknowledged his influence. They sought to emulate his competitive drive, his relentless pursuit of success, and his ability to elevate those around him. Jordan was no longer just a player, he had become a symbol of what it meant to be the best, not just in basketball, but in life. His story became a blueprint for greatness, one that would continue to inspire athletes across every sport for decades. And yet, even as Jordan transitioned into his post-playing career, the question of who was the greatest player of all time remained. For some, it was Michael Jordan. For others, the debate continued, with players like LeBron James rising to challenge his title. But no matter who came after him, Jordan remained the gold standard. He had set the bar so high that no player could come close without at least attempting to follow in his footsteps. His 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, 14 All-Star appearances, and countless other accolades made him not just a legend of his time, but a figure whose impact would never fade. As Jordan reflected on his career, he knew that he had achieved everything he could have ever hoped for. He had faced every challenge, overcome every obstacle, and come out on top time and time again. He had built a dynasty, created a legacy, and changed the world of sports forever. And as he looked back on it all, Jordan could finally rest knowing that he had given everything to the game and, in return, had left behind a legacy that would live on for generations. The story of Michael Jordan wasn't just about basketball. It was about the pursuit of excellence, the refusal to accept anything less than greatness, and the willingness to give everything for the chance to be the best. His impact on the sport, and the world, was immeasurable. And as the curtain fell on his career, the world knew that Michael Jordan had not only changed the game of basketball, he had changed the world itself.